36, 43.
Ora sì che io son contenta, sembra fatto in per me, sembra fatto in per me.
5.
Guarda un po' mio caro Figaro,
10.
guarda un po' mio caro Figaro,
20.
guarda un po',
30.
guarda adesso il mio cappello,
36,
guarda adesso il mio cappello,
43.
guarda un po' mio caro Figaro, guarda adesso il mio cappello, il mio cappello, il mio cappello.
Sì, il mio cuore ora è più bello, sembra fatto in verde, sembra fatto in verde.
Guarda un po',
Sì, il mio cuore
guarda un po',
ora è più bello,
ora sì che io son contenta,
sì,
ora sì che io
ora è
son
più bello, sembra fatto in verde. Al mattino alle nozze vicino, quanto è dolce al tuo tenero sposo, questo bel cappellino mezzoso, che Susanna è la stessa si vede, che Susanna è la stessa si vede, Susanna è la stessa,
è la stessa.
che Susanna è la stessa si vede, stessa si vede, stessa si vede, che Susanna è la stessa si vede.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Global Voices. My name is Johnny Langridge and it's my great pleasure to join you this evening as we talk again with some amazing artists from across the globe who this time are indeed scattered across the globe. First, that was an excerpt, of course, from The Marriage of Figaro, Le Nozze di Figaro, and you saw there Joshua Bloom in the role of Figaro with Jenny France, his Susanna, preparing for their wedding day. And the subject for this week's Global Voices is indeed preparation. We thought it was a good idea to get together a fabulous list of artists who join me now. And we are joined by Karina Canellakis, conductor, Roderick Williams, baritone and composer, Pene Pati, tenor, and hiding somewhere in the wings, Stuart Skelton, tenor, and I will explain more about why he's not yet on screen in a moment. But perhaps first, I can ask each of you where you are in the world. Where are you joining us from, Pene?
Hi, I'm currently beaming in from New Zealand. I'm in Tomorrowland for anyone watching from Europe, and I'm in a small town in New Zealand, so that's where I'm holding up at the moment.
It's great to see you. Thank you for joining us. And Karina, where are you this evening?
I am in my home in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands.
And Roddy, are you somewhere extremely exotic?
Yes, I'm probably the most exotic. I'm in a small village outside of Stratford-upon-Avon, just off the M40.
Well, Roddy, I want to start with you because during the late summer, I attended a performance in my car at English National Opera at Alexandra Palace, and you were singing in La Bohème, and it was outdoors, and it was performed obviously to a live audience, but also telecast on big screens. How on earth did you prepare for that experience as an artist? Was it quite ordinary as a performance or completely other?
It was quite other because it was being done outdoors up on a specially constructed stage in the car park at Alexandra Palace on top of the hill. And it was extraordinary because it was the first live performance of opera that any of us had done for several months. Many of us had been in the cast at English National Opera when the first lockdown was announced. So we were halfway through performances of Madame Butterfly when everything ceased. And so it was wonderful for me personally, for my colleague Natalia Romani to be able to pick up with E&O in the summer. And it was strange. I just warn you now, I could talk about this for the whole session, so stop me when you've had enough. But it was strange because the orchestra was up and behind us, on scaffolding with the woodwind and brass and percussion a floor above the strings, who are also above and behind us. Martin Brabbins, who's conducting, was in a cherry picker about 20, 30 feet off the ground, conducting so that both of them could see. He couldn't see us. We found it very difficult to see him because sometimes the matinees were in daylight and the monitors were invisible in daylight. So we were basically doing human karaoke, just singing with where we thought the orchestra would be, and vice versa, and in a really funky production. And just to say that I still haven't answered how I prepared for this, but I'm coming to that. Because it was performed without interval and short enough that everybody's bladders in their cars could take it. Someone had gone through the score very cleverly and removed about 20 to 25 minutes worth of music from almost seamlessly. So preparation for that. Now I'm coming on to it. Here it is. The preparation for that. First of all, I need to remind you that I was doing nothing else at that time. So when E&O rang up and said, would I be free? Yes, I was entirely free. So the preparation, I had acres of time to prepare for it because there was nothing else to do during the day. And that is a piece I know well. And the translation was new to me, but I absorbed it very quickly. So the first thing I'll say about this evening is there's a very great difference to preparing a completely new piece and preparing a piece that you've done several times before, particularly an opera you've done several times before in different productions. It's a little bit like putting on an old suit, and you might put a hand in a pocket, keep the metaphor going, discover there's a new bit of translation you hadn't known before. So every now and again I might sing an older translation. Sorry everybody, yeah, guilty. But the piece itself, actually, I absorbed pretty quickly.
And Karina, I know you from old, but I was reminding myself of your many, many hats that you wear with various fantastic leading orchestras across the world. I imagine that your diary, in normal times, I suppose, is full of all sorts of even conflicting engagements. How on earth do you prepare when you're just picking up on what Roddy was saying, when you have 2 or 3 concurrent engagements that you're thinking about and preparing all the time?
That was so long ago. that was like 8 months ago, that life. I've moved on. No, I mean, I don't know. Honestly, though, I'm only half joking because this whole has it been 8 months? Well, it's been since March, I guess, mid-March, right? For most of us. It's just changed everything. And Roderick, what you were saying about having time, none of us ever normally have that. And now we find ourselves with all this time in between things that are planned now. I mean, in our world, we usually plan things 2 to 4 seasons out. And now they're being planned 2 to 4 weeks out, literally, because people cancel because they can't get over the border, or they didn't get a corona test in time to get over the border, whatever. So the whole preparation thing has changed so drastically for all of us, I think, in the music world, because things are being planned and sort of saved in the last minute because of all these changes. So and it's been months and months and months of that. So my life, where I was preparing multiple things at the same time, I don't know. This whole thing has made me rethink how much I actually want to go back to that, because I've really enjoyed having more time to absorb a piece and having sort of a more singular focus, and having, let's say, 2 weeks off before I have to do something, rather than, just going literally from a Sunday afternoon concert to the airport and then going into a Monday morning rehearsal in another country straight off the plane, which nobody should ever do, but we all sometimes say yes to those things because we want to do a project and the dates are just back to back. So, and that's not healthy. So I don't know. I'm answering your question with a big question mark. This whole thing has raised a lot of questions for me.
Definitely. We'll come back to that and how your preparation has changed with a bit more time. But Pene, I actually want to pose that question to you. Karina's doing my job for me. Have you been able to use this time for, either preparing other things that you've meant to do for years, or perhaps like me, I set off in March thinking I'm going to read the whole works of Shakespeare, and all of these very virtuous things that I wanted to do, and I haven't managed to do any of them. Have you prepared differently in this time for things that might come up in the future?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I'm in the same boat as Karina here. It's a strange one because I'm quite versed with preparation. I like preparing a lot. Well, given this situation, given the climate that's happening right now, the hardest thing is trying right now to get back into it all the time. You have moments where I remember when we all went down in March, and I thought the exact same thing as you. I thought this is going to be the year I will learn everything and I will read up on everything I can find. And that never really happened because I think there's a link. There's a definite link between the motivation and preparation, or inspiration or something there. I need to be moved to go and do it, And when everything was happening and the whirlwind of it all, I just lost the motivation. I lost the inspiration to do it because every time I put in all the work, it was lost somehow. And it was kind of someone said it at the latest at Berlin, and the start of it, for lack of a better description, said it's like an artistic stillborn. And I thought that's the worst description. But then when I thought about it for a while, I thought that's so right. You cherish this baby for so long and only for it to be ripped away at the last minute, and you don't know how to feel. So the preparation, I guess, it's not so much for the music. At the moment now, I'm more preparing emotionally for anything that might happen. So I feel like the music has always been there. The preparation for the music has always been instilled in me. But now I have a different view because I'm preparing for anything that doesn't have to do with the music. That's been my preparation process now. It's preparing what would happen if things take the drastic left turn.
Yeah. I feel it would be appropriate at this stage to say that the fourth member of our panel is knee deep in preparations right now. Stuart Skelton may join us in a moment, but he is in fact preparing on stage at the moment Act 2 of Fidelio in Oviedo in Spain. And he obviously singing the role of Florestan is, I don't want to shock our viewers, but he will potentially be joining in full garb and makeup. And it is a scary sight. So we saw him briefly before we started here, and he said that he will come and join us, but we heard on the tannoy, Mr. Skelton to the stage, please. So Florestan is in his dingy cell right now. When he's liberated from his rehearsal, he'll come and join us. But Roddy, I want to pick up on the idea of preparing roles and forgetting completely the situation we find ourselves in now. How do you approach a leader recital in terms of your preparation, in contrast maybe to an operatic role, either Marcello or because I remember it so well, Eugene Onegin at Garsington? How does it change?
Well, there are many similarities. That's the first thing to put out there. There are many similarities in terms of just learning the music. One of the main big differences is that for an opera company, that part of the contract, often in bold capital letters, is that the artist will know the role off by heart before the first day of rehearsals. And so there's an outside force saying, do your homework before you turn up, please. Okay. Now, I can see you smiling there because you know that doesn't always happen. But anyway, that's the expectation. Day one of rehearsals, all the singers will be off copy. And then you have the rehearsal period, which could be anywhere between 2 to 6 weeks or longer sometimes in new productions. So you get this beauty of repetition. A rehearsal, with colleagues, and you go over things and you try different things. You've got this wonderful luxury of pretty much the closest to a 9 to 5 existence that I've had. Opera singer 10:30, obviously not 9, but you know what I mean. So with a vocal recital, I have to have that discipline to put that work in beforehand, and I couldn't afford to do that. I couldn't afford to do all the memorizing first and then give myself a 4-week rehearsal period for a recital, singing it through every day. I'd love to know what that feels like, but it's never happened to me. So I do that preparation in the gap, something that Karina was mentioning earlier on. You were putting to her the idea of having things going concurrently. It is often, for example, that I'll have different recital programs, like plates spinning at the same time. And if I'm doing them from memory, which I mostly do because I have to wear reading glasses, otherwise I feel foolish, then they have to be in my mind at once. Just a few days ago, I sang an English song program in London, and on Saturday I'm singing Winterreise, and on Monday I'm singing Schwanengesang. And so I have to try and keep the memory of all those notes and words, mostly the words to be honest, in my head. Schwanengesang and Winterreise now I've done enough that they feel like old friends, but therein can lie a certain amount of complacency. So I have to make sure I'm focused and do my revision, do my homework. I've got a train journey coming up in about an hour or so after we've done here, and I will sit on the train and look through the words, and if no one's around, sing as well, maybe a little bit. So I have to do the homework.
Is it a bit like a hard drive, in the sense that when you leave the house, you think, right, which one what am I doing? Okay, it's that one. Does it stick? Is your brain rigid in that once you know what the program is, you're not going to start singing Winterreise when it should be?
Well, the glorious thing for me is that the piano starts all these songs, so I have enough time to think, wait, what song is that? Oh, right. Oh, it's this one. So that doesn't often happen. It has happened to me just recently, but it doesn't often happen. But my brain, I'm in my mid-50s now, and my brain is not the steel trap it once was. It never was. But so I do have to work hard. Or put it another way, I know every word in a recital program, but whether I can access it in real time, that's something slightly different. So actually part of the preparation is getting comfortable enough to have a memory slip and get back in. If I have a memory slip that makes me panic and then I have a system shut down and I have to stop, that can be a bit embarrassing and I feel a bit foolish on stage. But if I can just have a small memory slip, a little accent, miss out a word or something like that, and keep piling on, that is what all my preparation is for, is to make me feel comfortable enough to know I can keep going, even with a disaster.
Yeah. Karina, I was so thrilled, of course, when the LPO announced your appointment as principal guest conductor. And one of the things that the organisation said about you, they commented on your command of a score and your insight and your sort of your rigor, almost academic rigor, I suppose. And just that does play in somewhat to I suppose the assumption of a lay person in the audience, that conductors are these mythic beasts that turn up and they know every note automatically, almost like they were born with it. Can you tell me a little bit what goes in from your side when you're preparing for, I don't know, you did a prom in 2019 that I'd love to show a clip from, Glagolitic Mass. Where do you start with that? And, how do you get to the first rehearsal?
Well, I love this subject because it's I think for all of us, it takes, at least for me, it takes me back to my first experiences as a violinist playing an orchestra, because for me, my familiarity with a piece from childhood has a huge impact on how much I need to, or on how I need to prepare it now as an adult, as a conductor. So I wouldn't be a conductor if I hadn't been a violinist first. So that's the sort of foundation for everything for me, is the fact that I played in youth orchestra from the time I was 9, and I played so much repertoire through high school every Saturday in my music school. And then I went to conservatory where I was playing in orchestra all the time, and I was really obsessed with it. Orchestra was my favorite moment in the week, and I played for the conductor's classes when I was there, and I remember always paying attention and I was always listening, and that's part of preparation. And I have a catalog of, it's almost like a filing cabinet of memories, and I think all musicians would agree that your first experience with a piece never leaves you. And even sometimes the way the place looked, if it was at a particular festival in a particular place, or a certain summer camp, or even the smell of the hall, the smell of the dressing rooms, what you and your friends used to drink backstage, you know, the tea machine, like these very specific things that I remember. If I think about Mahler 6, I think about playing it under James Levine in the Curtis Orchestra at Verbier when I was 17 in the back of the second violins. And he had a purple towel over his shoulder in the rehearsal. You know, I mean, it was like very specific, very clear memories of certain pieces. And that is a huge part of preparation for me. Because if I never had any experience with the piece, so actually Janacek Glagolitic Mass, I never played, and I didn't really ever hear live before I had to jump in as a conductor, and sort of learn it from that perspective. So I had to start much further in advance with that piece than I would with certain other repertoire, because there's this technique of repetition. It's called spaced repetition, and you know, medical students use it a lot. Anyone who has to, law students, anyone who has to memorize an enormous amount of information. And Roderick, everything you were saying is exactly spaced repetition. It's when you, for short, intense periods of time, like a train journey, or you know, 20 minutes in between two other appointments that you have, you look at something and you study it intensely, and then you leave it, and then you come back to it a certain number of hours or days later, and you keep doing that. So you space out the repetition over a longer period of time. And for me, that's been the most effective way to keep repertoire, like Roderick was saying, keep the words in his head. For me, to keep the music in my mind, to keep the visual image of the score in my mind, you know, to just keep that earworm of whatever that piece is going. And that's especially important when you are doing a lot of repertoire at once.
Yeah. And what about mid-concert? I mean, I'd love, if you'll permit us, to play a short clip of Glagolitic Mass from the Proms. There's an amazing point at the start of this clip where there's a collection, if you like, a moment of pause in the music before a new phase, and you can see this extreme sort of flicker of emotions go over your brain, or your face even. What's going on in your brain when you're leading an orchestra to emote in a piece like that?
I think it's really difficult to put into words, but definitely most of it is hearing the sound that I want to hear just before it happens.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of conducting is using your inner singing voice. Conductors generally don't have very, very pretty voices. So it's good that it's an inner voice, at least with me. Very good, no one can hear it. But it's sort of, you know, I do notice myself sometimes literally singing or even sort of grunting with the music while I'm up there, especially in rehearsals when you're trying to achieve something specific, a certain character, a certain mood, a certain type of sound, a certain momentum, build up. And I think the clip that you're going to play, that moment is such an outpouring of sort of grief and emotion, and it's hard to even put it into words, but the sound itself is so full of sort of longing, and in order to sort of your gesture and your breath when you prepare for something like that needs to connect with the players so that they, in a split second, without anybody saying anything, they feel you and they prepare the way you're preparing for that, and then they do the thing that is going to create that sound, and that all happens in, you know, a split second.
It's amazing. I urge you as a viewer to watch this clip with interest, because I think everything, Karina, that you've just said, you know, they say, you know, a picture is a thousand words. I think your gesture and your facial expressions just, it almost communicates the human condition in this clip. So I really hope you enjoy it. Here's Karina conducting the BBC Symphony Orchestra from the BBC Proms in 2019, Janacek's Glagolitic Mass. It's really wonderful. And I don't know about you, Pene, I could see everything that Karina just said in that split second.
Everything. And then you explained it. It's so funny how you said you're lost for words on how to explain that kind of emotion. But weirdly, I understand everything you said with the limited amount of words you had. I guess it's an artistic connection. I don't know.
And Pene, I just want to ask you, when you're preparing for performance on a performance day, what's your kind of ritual? We hear all these stories of people, touching doors 3 times or whatever. Are you superstitious, or do you have a particular routine?
No, I'm in fact, I must be one of the only singers who's completely relaxed. I try to do things that don't have anything to do with the opera, to be honest. One time, the general director walked in and I was sleeping on the floor about half an hour before the show. I just try to zen out as much as I can, because there is such a thing as being over prepared. There's moments when you're on stage, or there's moments before going on stage where you're constantly running everything because you're just in fear of getting something wrong. And because you're doing that, you end up getting it wrong. And so for me, I just try to get out of my mind as much as I can, just be relaxed as possible. I feel like that's the key for me to sing.
And you released a recording just very recently. I think you recorded it perhaps in the last couple of weeks of you singing that fiendishly difficult aria from Mozart's Mithridates, Eddie Lowry. And I've got a clip here that I'd love to play, but just tell us a little bit about the conditions you recorded that in.
Oh man. I actually just write back. There's a parody that I do that's on my Instagram about singers accepting jobs, because you're told, hey, can you sing Mithridates? And I was like, oh yeah, that's fine. I'll happily do it. And then he opens with this aria. He starts with this aria, and it's horrible. It is so hard. And then 10 minutes, half an hour, or like an hour later into accepting it, you call the manager back and say, yeah, this is not for me. But for me, in this particular situation, it's really funny because they called me to sing 2 other arias, and I thought, okay, this is fine. Then right at the end, they said, can you sing Mithridates Teddy Loudly while you're here? I thought, oh no, okay, here we go. So if you see in the beginning of the aria, I'm trying to stay as calm as possible, because the vocal leaps, the intervals are so insane. If you're not calm, or if you're not sitting low, it's gonna fly off. So everyone's saying, "Oh, you're so." When my friends were watching it, they said, "You're so in character. You're so the deep meaning." I said, "No. Well, actually, what's running through my head is, oh no, don't stuff this one up. So I'm trying to stay as calm as possible, because the moment you start stacking the air upon your singing, it's you have a different interpretation of the song altogether.
For sure. Well, let's, if you'll permit us, let's take a little look at that
Oh, Lord.
with Pene
Okay.
singing Mitradate's aria from the top of Mozart's opera Mitridate, of course, Sedi Lauri. Amazing, Pene. That was absolutely beautiful. And as if by magic, just the haunting tones of Mozart and Mitridate has attracted another of your species. Another tenor has flocked to the carcass. Stuart Skelton, welcome back from your imprisonment.
Thank you, John.
Where are you? What are you wearing?
Yes, this is the latest in the COVID-19 fashion wear in northern Spain. I'm in Oviedo, in Asturias, in northern Spain. We've just finished our last stage orchestral of Fidelio here. Hence my déshabillement.
It looks absolutely amazing. Listen, we are in full flow about preparation, and what could be better than talking about preparation mid-rehearsal? You know, how do you get your mind in the right place to be able to do that, then presumably a bit more of that later?
Well, yeah, I think the easy thing at least for me over time now, is that a lot of this court security who let the convict is that I've sort of narrowed my repertoire down to like a handful of things that I do quite frequently. And it's interesting now that I find there are certain musical triggers for me that get me into the space I need to be relatively quickly. In Act 2 of Fidelio, you're always on stage with the curtain down in complete blackness when the second act starts, and that page and almost 2 pages of music that leads you in an F minor is it's very evocative. So it's easier to sort of find your way into the character that way. But it's I guess once you've been well prepared once, the well-prepared thing becomes a habit to a certain extent, and you get a kick out of being, I certainly do get a real joy out of being well-prepared, rocking up to the first day of rehearsal, first day of school, and not having the imposter syndrome thing. Well, that doesn't always happen, but you're always wanting to be on it. And I think being the good habits of preparation early on when you're being taught things and you're learning and you're listening to conductors and learning from singers who are fabulous and you're on stage with them a lot, is that those early stages of being well prepared stands you in very good stead going ahead.
And from one famously tricky tenor aria, they're beautifully sung by Pene, to another
beautiful
Floristan's aria at the top of Act 2. How on earth do you prepare for that vocally? Was that you?
Sorry, go ahead.
Go back.
No, not at all.
How do you prepare for that aria vocally? You know,
you just I guess with it, you just don't panic. I think is probably the best advice. That little stretto at the end, the stretta at the end, is going to feel like you're going to run out, or it's going to be the tessitura, which just won't work. And I think if it was probably a page longer, it wouldn't work. Certainly, I couldn't make it work if it was a page longer. But I think you've just got to not panic and do what you know your voice does. Set it up with the phrasing and the technical things, and always have that subroutine of the technique running in the background, and just tell the story. And I think if you're really telling the story, you don't have time to think about, oh gosh, this phrase is really high. You don't have time. You don't have to have a chance to think about it. But again, I think good preparation, physically, the good preparation of just when it does let you breathe. He's given you the opportunity. Take it. You may as well. I think it's that way you don't sort of get too high and it doesn't start to stack up on you and you don't panic so much.
Yeah. Well, he gives you those moments for breath are few and far between.
Yeah, exactly.
I
tend to breathe once at the beginning and then just wait till the end.
That's it, scuba tank territory. Yeah. Well, you know, if you get called again, of course, just wave and we'll understand.
No, I think we're done for the day. So
you did it so well that they don't need you to go back.
I'm not sure that's true. I'll take the compliment though.
Roddy, I want to talk to you. You know, we've been talking about performance so much. I want to talk to you about composition. You know, we touched there on two very difficult pieces to sing. How do you write for the voice, and how much preparation do you do, I suppose, as a singer when you compose?
That's an interesting question. I suppose in writing a voice, particularly if it's not for my voice, if I'm writing for different voice parts, either chorally or solo instruments, I would imagine kind of singing it myself. As a performer, first, a composer second, I'm used to writing music that I hope is practical. And I am used as a performer to other composers sidling up to me on projects and coming up and saying, what's your highest note? And then they make and I undersell by a third or something like that. And then they say, what's your lowest note? And so I oversell that. And then of course, you know as well as I do, they then write a piece that uses the two notes that you've mentioned, you know. So I feel that is not necessarily the most practical way of writing for the voice. I tend to think lyrically because I'm thinking of the performer. In terms of preparation, I think a lot of the preparation is done wandering around, actually. One of the things, Karina was talking a lot about having space in the last few months and most of this year. And one of the things that I've done a lot of is a lot of walking with my dog. And I process a great deal when I'm out in our local woods around me here in Warwickshire, Tier 3. I've been able to process a great deal of information. It's a great moment for an idea to hit me of whatever shape, either music or just a shape of a piece. And often if I've got the poem in my head, something will begin occurring then that I can then race back. I wouldn't by any stretch equate it to Beethoven and his sketchbooks. I'm not one for sitting down and drawing little things in and think, I must use that. Those 3 intervals in a row, I'll use that.
The other key difference is, Roddy, you do write breaths. So congratulations.
Yes, I also yes. I'm very well aware that singers passing out on stage is never a good look. So. There's a lot of that preparation that can be done away from manuscript paper and away from software and lots of stuff. It's just being inspired really by living. And actually, I do come back again very forcibly to something that Karina said earlier on, and I'd echo that. Just actually having the time to live has been a real gift. I loved being busy. I loved my singing career. In the gaps in the singing career, I would do a lot of writing. I've spent an awful lot of time in hotel rooms without going to see the city at all, just writing, keeping up with deadlines. And I loved being busy because I thought it defined me. I thought it defined my success, that I was constantly working. And one of the gifts of because you do need to look for gifts in this, is that I've had space and time to stop and listen and rest and live, most importantly. So I'm certainly going to take that with me.
Well, it is, of course, that great season of preparation, Advent. And Roddy, if you'll permit me, I'd love to play one of your compositions here, performed by the Ora singers, O Adonai. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it before we hear it?
Yes, I'm not quite sure which bit, how you're going to get in or out, but I can tell you that
There's a bit with you in it, Roddy.
Is a bit with me in it. Oh, okay. These Advent antiphons, they all seem to have this refrain, from mortals to above, saying, please come. It's a real sense of imploring. Come and save me, rescue me. My piece, O Adonai, begins with sopranos as angels, hopefully upstairs somewhere, singing and improvising off each other. And then you get the mortals, the people, the altos, tenors and basses, hopefully behind the congregational audience, behind them, as part of the people, singing a bit more of the text. And then some idiot comes up the front and actually is the only person who sings all of the text, the sort of celebrant, the priest, if you like, or whatever, who is the only person who sings the whole thing and implores in something that you might hear some sort of slightly Jewish overtones in this, in the cantor sort of style of this. We'll see what I think.
Well, let's have a listen. This is Roddy Williams singing with the Ora singers, his own composition, O Adonai. Really stunning, Roddy, and gets us completely into the mood for the preparations to come. I did think that, it's a good topic to be talking about at the beginning of Advent.
Yeah. Yes.
So thank you, everybody, for joining us for this, both online watching live and also to our wonderful panel. I just want to conclude our wonderful evening and I found very illuminating discussion with you all. There's that old mantra, that old adage of fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And I sort of want to turn that on its head, because I'm joined here by people right at the top of their profession, right at the top of their game. Do you feel, when you're running from gig to gig or from, massive premiere to premiere, do you feel that you can prepare for success, or does it sometimes get a bit much? Karina, I want to ask you that. You go all over the world conducting different orchestras. How do you prepare for that success?
I really never think about anything except the music. That sounds really overly simplistic, but I really only think about just going into that world and completely sort of submerging myself in, it's like being in another reality. And I mean, I'm even surprised, Stuart, that you can even talk to us after being on stage, because when I get off stage, I'm like a little bit shell-shocked. You seem oddly normal, not necessarily how you look, but how your speaking was relatively
I think the
normal.
outfit's quite normal, actually. It's about the most normal thing about you this evening, Stuart.
Blood is it's great. But you know, I think just, it's really important, and this is something that I actually have a chat tomorrow with some students from a conservatory, and I'm preparing for that, and I'm really looking forward to talking to them about how to focus on what's really important in this day and age where we're overly saturated with digital distractions and Facebook comments and likes and wanting to be loved and wanting to be liked and wanting to be popular. And Roderick, like you said, you know, your busyness defines you after a while. And as long as you're busy, you feel like everything's okay and I'm doing well. And we all do that to each other a little bit in this field, you know. And I would just urge all musicians, and I'm saying this to myself also, to just focus on what's really important, which is, you know, the music itself and your love of the music itself, and keeping a sense of humility, and never to think about like success ever, because the minute you start thinking about it, you'll just kind of kill the magic.
And does that resonate with you, Pene, in your career and your experience?
Yeah, that was again right on the head. I'm just trying to think. It's an interesting career we're in where we're always preparing for the worst. We never really prepare for success. You know, we always got a plan, and every time you're taught in school, it's like, this is what will happen if it goes this way. It's never like it'll happen this way. You know, it's interesting because I feel like there is no preparation for success. Now that you bring it up, it's more like on the lines of Karina saying, you're just more, when I finish a successful show, it's more that I'm grateful to be working, or grateful to be singing, or grateful to be in that position. I still to this day don't know what it's like to be successful, to be honest. And I think there's part of it that's actually quite nice, because once I become comfortable being successful, I become complacent. And so there's a part of me that that's always striving to be successful. And I'm always incredibly grateful of something. If I get to sing in the house, I'm grateful that I'm being chosen out of so many tenors or so many singers. But yeah, that's you hit it right on, Karina. I feel that's right.
Members of my family always used to say, well, you're only as good as your last concert. Stuart,
Yes.
is that something you feel? I need to ask you to unmute. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's better. Sorry. Well, I think Karina and Pene both have approached it from the same point of view. And for me, my question has always been, what's your definition of success? For me, the definition has always been being able to make music with other musicians. And if that's success, and I've chosen to think of it as that's what we all started out studying to do, is I get to make remarkable music with remarkable musicians. So I'll take it, you know. The other things that come as a trapping of that success, obviously, it's nicer with than without them. But, and I've said this before, and it always sounded glib at the time, but and it's not. I don't mean it to be. Is that I don't want anyone to tell anyone this, but I'd probably do what I do for nothing, because I just love it so much. And you know, so yeah, I guess the definition for me of success is I get to do the thing that I love most, the thing that I have to do, the thing that is under my skin in a way that nothing else is. And I get to do that with people like yourselves, like this wonderful panel, and more wonderful musicians besides. And so to be in their company is my success, and I'm still there. So I'll take that.
Roddy, I think for a lot of us, and certainly, speaking not on behalf of, but speaking as someone who is in administration in the arts as well as singing myself, but for us, success means a return to normality, a return of audiences to the theatre. And, I know you've been doing some performances and many others on the panel as well, but how can we as an industry, and I suppose our public as well, how can we prepare for that success of a return to normality?
I think one of the things is to be able to shuffle off the fear that was instilled in us with purpose during the summer to make sure that we all behaved and we were all compliant. And I totally understand that. I totally understand the movement of masses is the only way to control the situation. Fear is very potent, and it will keep people away from concert halls in the future unless we counter it with something, a vaccine, a fear vaccine all its own, to allow people to come back. You know as well as I do, particularly in the recital area, but maybe in opera as well, that audiences tend to be retired, people who've got time and disposable income to be able to afford it. So I look at my average recital audiences, they're quite elderly. They're exactly the sort of people who would be most reticent to taking the chances with this virus in public. But they're the people that I've been singing to for all of my career. And if they don't come back to hear music live, it's kind of game over for me. So one of the ways that we can prepare is to begin talking about the idea of sharing live concert halls again as being something worthwhile, something beautiful, being in a room together, sharing a unique experience that isn't streamed, it isn't kept. It happens and then it exists in our collective memory, and it's gone. And rather than sitting in our chairs and looking at the 9 empty seats on either side of us, behind us, and thinking, I hope they look a bit close to me, those ones over there, that we embrace the idea in a future very soon, a vaccinated future, where people can get together again and share their love of music. I cannot wait for that to happen.
Me too. And I have good news for you all that Garsington opened priority booking for their members, and in due course public booking next year for the 2021's festival, and people are really in their droves supporting it, and I'm very excited to report that I think we will be back into successful normality as soon as is safe and secure. But I think that people are really indeed valuing what you've just said, Roddy, and what you all do. I'm really grateful to each one of you, our wonderful panel, Stuart, Skelton, Karina, Canellakis, Pene, Pati, and Roderick Williams, the four corners of the globe, I would say. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everything that you do, and we can't wait to see you again on the concert and opera platform, and we will see you soon. Thank you everybody for joining us this evening, and we won't see you in another Global Voices before Christmas, so I wish you all a very safe and happy Christmas.